You want me to share a house with a wanted murderer, and people bring me little scraps of leather? That's my treat. Otherwise, it's a life of misery, isolation, and constant fear of arrest.
Hello, time travellers.
Hello, time travellers.
Hello, Ed. Hello, Ed.
Hello, Mark. This week, we're going to be looking at the very serious issue of the property market. Time travel isn't just about appearing somewhere, saying hello, getting sick and coming back. Some people choose to stay in time and invest in property. So this week we're going to look seriously at what's available, what's on the market, and what's cool.
Yes, we're going to see if we can come up with some interesting little properties that we think you should travel back and look at. I'm going to show you around. I've got my clipboard all ready to go. I am now an official time-travelling estate agent. Can I interest you in a property, Ed?
What a nightmarish notion, the time-travelling estate agent. You can interest me in a property.
Tudor hat, back to our old favourite, Henry VIII.
Got Tudor hat with me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I would like to interest you in Nonsuch Palace. Come for a walk with me around the absolute splendour that Henry VIII wasted all of his money on. £24,000 the price of this one. Can you run to that? That's the good thing about time travel.
Yeah.
The thing about Nonsuch, which is one of his odd little places down near Surrey, is that it was built from scratch. So most Tudor palaces are built on top of another one, on top of another one. Started from scratch. Started from scratch in the really good way of saying, excuse me, kind peasants, but we're going to knock your village down. So they cleared the area and built this complete state-of-the-art, that's why I'm interested in getting you, Renaissance palace, not all bricks and stones like a castle, but this one is covered, absolutely covered in decoration. Lots of cornucopia and swirly bit. It's disgusting, actually. It looks like a wedding cake.
Hideous.
Place.
I know.
I know. Like it.
Well, I don't know the place because there's nothing left of it, is there? There's a carving, isn't it, in Cheam Church or somewhere in the gateway that shows you what it looked like. There's a few drawings, but it's hideous. You could interest me in it. But it's a hideous stucco-covered timber, crazy pretend Disney castle.
That's the one.
Yeah, I could invest in that.
I feel honour bound as your estate agent, though, to point out that there is one tiny problem with it. If you were to visit it in the 16th century, when it's looking at its best, they forgot to work out whether there was any water to drink around there. So you're going to have the drains sorted out.
Oh. Also, and here's one of those beautiful time-travelling conundrums, of course, it's got a resident who's quite famous, and we've already discussed the dangers of Henry Fatboy falling out with you. I think if you turn up and say, I bought this, it's mine now, you're going to be in trouble. Mark, is it really on the market? Can you put it on the market?
I'm hopeful. I was hoping now to have a little word in his ear and say, Your Majesty, this one looks rubbish. Move on. Move on.
I've got one for you. I was thinking, most houses that you look at, well done. They're made of, it's nice 17th century brick for you. Brick, baked mud, or they're made of stone, which is just stone dug out the ground, or, concrete, which is rock. Or they have glass in the windows, which is just burnt sand. You need something unique. You need something that's going to show how incredibly wild and crazy your time travel adventures are. So I want to sell you a Upper Paleolithic Ukrainian Mammoth Bone Hut.
I'm tempted.
You ever come across those?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I'm very tempted. Are we talking about a sort of this shape? Are we doing that?
They're sort of dome shape. Around the edge you put mammoth jawbones, which seem to act as sort of a brace, and then you put mammoth bones up and you pile this huge pile of mammoth bones. There's a debate over whether they're really houses or just sort of a way of storing meat. It's 15 to 25,000 years ago. You're there on tundra, it's glaciers around, it's steppe, there's a bit of forest, and absolute misery. Awful place probably, but you get to go, my house is made of mammoth bones, yours is made of baked mud, look how cool I am. And I think that'd be a great thing, and I think that'd suit you. A man of your vigour and taste and discernment would enjoy the Upper Paleolithic in sort of a tundral Ukraine, don't you think?
Well, much as I really think a mammoth bone house like that would be really cool, you're trying to sell me a walk-in fridge. I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you win either way. If it's a house, you've got a house. If it's a walk-in fridge, you've won the debate.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, you're sort of, you know, you get both. It's a lovely property that would suit Sir down to the ground. Have a mammoth hut. Come on.
I've noticed, sir, that you're very keen on a little bit of isolation. Dropping back to the Paleolithic, all of those sorts of things. Can I interest you? I'm going to have to dress now. I'm going to blend in with the 18th century workman. There we go.
Yeah.
No one spots me now. I need to be a working man from late 18th century Britain.
Well,
and I'm going to take you down to Plymouth, down to a little beach called Wembury. And just off the beach, I want to interest you in a little island called Great Musestone. Do you know that one?
No.
Oh, Great Musestone has a house on it for you. It has a house on it because a gentleman was convicted of a crime and got off with not being sent to Australia if he promised to go and live on this little tiny rock island just off Plymouth. Everyone thought it was a brilliant idea. He built himself a little house and they said, there we are, we've exiled him. That'll teach him to be naughty. And once his crime was paid back and his time was done, they said, well, you can come back now. And he went, no, I like it here. And he stayed there for the rest of his life. He lived out his whole life in this tiny little house, sat on Great
What's the
Musestone
little house
Rock.
like then?
Well, the house is bijou. We're talking a small island and a small house. A little sort of, well, it's back to those baked bricks you don't like. A little brick house with a couple of rooms that he managed to bring his family up in. So,
If I wanted to go and live on a remote island, I don't think I'd go and live off the coast of Plymouth. I think, you know, I'd head for Skellig Michael and lead a monastic, solitary existence on some terrible rock in the middle of the Atlantic with the gales battering. Plymouth seems a bit of a copper. I expect, you know, that Plymouth has its 18th century gin distillery, doesn't it? So you could presumably you could put in orders going, you know, I'd like a delivery of gin, please, or you're in Devon, aren't you? Virtually on the Cornish border, you could have some pasties sent over and things like that. So, it's going to be isolation but with comfort. So.
Yes.
I could be interested. You know what I'm going to say. My great obsession, rock cut dwellings, rock houses. Again, why build a house out of rocks if you can have a house dug into rocks? Particular obsession of mine, the rock cut buildings of the Severn Valley. Which are these little rock-cut houses, very, very Hobbit-esque in a way, possibly where his nibs based the Hobbit holes on, very probably in fact, but little tiny houses dug out of a cliff. So you dig a cliff, in that shape, and you're digging into the, because you're taking blocks out to build things out of sandstone, you dig into the mat, and you get a lovely little house, and they are warm in the winter, cool in the summer. Unfortunately, you get a sort of rain of sand throughout the year, so you get silicosis. And the last ones in the area I'm sort of thinking of were occupied right up until the 60s, when the last people moved out because they became very grotty, damp and awful. But before then, there were bits where they were really quite good places to live. So I can imagine as a man like you, who a cave would, you know, you've got minimum fuss. You're not going to have a leaky roof unless water starts percolating through the rock. If you need another room, you can just dig it. You just get a pick and dig it, but you do have the danger it might collapse on you. But I think a cave would be a great place for a man like you. You could put your collections of objets d'art in it and be really quite happy.
We're dropping back into the 17th century because I want to take you, and we're going to go and visit this little chap, a lovely chap called John Big, and he's got a cave that he's thinking of vacating. So if we pop down there in...
Was that Little John's cousin or something?
No, luckily it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we want to hit there about 1700 when he's thinking of moving. And John Big is known as the Dinton Hermit, just outside Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, and he moved himself to a cave, which I think is going to be well worth a look at. Why did he move to a cave? Oh, surrounded by mystery. Mr. Big... Oh, I'm told of that.
Surrounded
he is Mr.
by
Big,
mystery.
Surrounded by mystery.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Big.
Surrounded by mystery. Yeah, go on.
I'm stuck in
Mr.
the
Big.
mystery now.
Hello, I'm Mr. Big. Go on.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
Mr. Big may have been a bit of a
Yes.
naughty gentleman. He was caught up in some way in the execution of Charles I, which, when you have a new republic, which I know you're very proud of, that's a good thing. When they bring back the king, you're part of the people that killed his daddy. So you might think of sort of wandering off for a bit. Lots of stories about Mr.
Yeah.
Big. Some even said he may have been in the execution.
So wait. Before you go too far, you're trying to sell me a property that I share with somebody who's being hunted as a murderer of the king in a cave hiding in a wood.
Well, I thought he'd be looking to sell. You know. Do you know how to get? Do you know how to get on his good side? What you need. See that little pile of leather? When you go and see John Big, you're supposed to take some scraps of leather to him because he is famous for having a patchwork set of clothes. He covers his clothes in the little patches of leather that all his visitors bring. So I thought,
you want me to share a house with a wanted murderer and people bring me little scraps of leather, that's my treat, otherwise it's a life of misery, isolation and constant fear of arrest and execution.
just what
Thanks,
you've all...
Mark. That sounds great. Count me in. Let me get my money. Wow, what a brilliant property.
So we have to remember, time travellers, that if you're going to pick yourself a lovely property in the past, don't let Ed and I do it.
I think go for a nice 1970s semi somewhere with a garage, nice garden, telly, you know, good working plumbing. Don't bother with us, because we'll put you in a cave. It ain't going to be nice.